Welcome to Story Sentence. My name is Serena Mitchell. I am 20 years old, and this is for every daughter who was told she was being practical while her brother got called the future. 6 months ago, my mother burned my college applications in the kitchen sink, while my father laughed at my SAT score, 1,480. Then he looked at me and said, "Save the money for your brother. Connor is going D1. They thought that ended my future. It did not. It just proved they had no idea who they were dealing with, because by then I had already submitted every single application online. They did not know where I had spent my summer, and they did not know what my grandmother had sealed inside the final letter she left behind before she died. By Thanksgiving, there were 22 people around our table. Connor wore his football jersey like he was already famous. My mother poured wine, my father carved the turkey, and every person in that house acted like they already knew which child mattered more. Then the phone rang. My mother answered it, and I watched the color drain completely out of her face. "You mean my daughter?" That was the moment the lie my family had been living on finally began to split open. If you have ever been made to feel smaller inside your own home, stay with me. If this story hits somewhere deeply personal, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. And if you are new here, please subscribe to Story Sentence and hit the like button so more people can find stories like this one. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand how we got there. Let me take you back to the night it all started. May 15th, 2025, 7:30 in the evening. I was sitting at my desk upstairs when the SAT score email came through. I had been refreshing my inbox every 10 minutes for 3 days. My hands were shaking when I clicked it open. 690 in math, 780 in verbal. Total 1,480. I stared at those numbers for a full minute. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. It was not perfect. I knew kids who had scored 1,560, even 1,600, but it was good. It was really good. Good enough for the schools I had been researching since my freshman year: MIT, Caltech, Stanford, Princeton. I printed the score report. The paper was still warm when I walked downstairs. I remember how the edges curled slightly, how the ink smelled like possibility, like everything I had worked for finally taking shape on a single sheet of paper. Dad was in the living room watching football highlights. Connor sat next to him on the couch, controller in hand, half paying attention to the TV and half playing some game on his phone. I stood in the doorway, holding my printout, and I can still remember the exact pattern of light from the television flickering across their faces. "I got my SAT score," I said. Dad glanced over his shoulder. "How bad?" The question did not surprise me. It should have, maybe, but it did not. That is what happens when you are a daughter in a house that only sees sons. 1,480, I said. He turned back to the TV and laughed. Not a cruel laugh. At least I do not think he meant it to be cruel. Just dismissive, like I had told him I got a B on a quiz that did not matter. "That's cute, Serena. Real cute." Connor looked up from his phone for half a second, then looked back down. I caught his eye for just a moment. Something flickered there. Guilt or discomfort, but he did not say anything. Dad kept talking. "Connor got 1090 and he's going D1. You think colleges care about tests anymore? They want athletes, leaders, kids who can do something, not just fill in bubbles." The paper in my hand felt suddenly heavy, like all those hours I had spent studying. The weekends, the late nights, the practice tests had just been erased in a single sentence. I stood there for a long moment. "I could apply," I said. "Apply where?" He did not look at me. "We have talked about this. College is expensive. We are putting everything into Connor's future. He has a real shot. But scholarships," I started. "Serena." Mom's voice came from the kitchen doorway. I had not heard her walk up behind me. Her arms were crossed. Her face was set in that expression I knew too well, the one that meant the conversation was already over before it began. "We have already decided. The money we have saved is for your brother. He needs camps, recruiting videos, visits. You are smart enough to figure out life without spending $100,000 we do not have. Need-based aid could cover most of it," I said. "No." Dad's voice was flat, final. "We are not filling out those forms. We are not spending our time on applications for schools you will not get into anyway. Connor is the one with the future here. You are practical, You will be fine. Practical girls stay close to home. That phrase, practical girls, I had heard it my whole life. Practical girls do not dream too big. Practical girls do not ask for too much. Practical girls make room for their brothers. That was it. Conversation over. Dad turned up the volume on the TV. Mom went back to the kitchen. Connor still had not looked up from his phone. I walked back upstairs, put the score report in my desk drawer, and closed it quietly. My hands were shaking, but not from excitement anymore, from something else, something colder and harder and more determined. And then I opened my laptop. I had been working on my college applications for 2 months, 8 schools. Common App was already filled out. Supplemental essays were done. I had written about the telescope I built in 10th grade from a kit I bought with babysitting money, about the summer I taught myself Python and built a program to track local weather patterns, about how I had always looked up at the sky and wondered what it would take to build something that could go there, something that could leave this planet behind. 2 days earlier, May 13th, 9:47 in the evening, I had hit submit on every single application. Online, digital, already sent, already received. I pulled up my email and scrolled through the confirmations one more time. Your application to MIT has been received. Application ID 2025-EA-9384. Thank you for applying to Caltech. Application ID 2025-AA-17839. Stanford University confirms receipt of your application. They could burn every piece of paper in this house. It would not matter. I closed my laptop and lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. There was a poster of the Andromeda Galaxy above my headboard. I had put it up in 8th grade. Grandma Margaret had bought it for me at a museum gift shop on a trip we took together, just the 2 of us, when I was 13. She was the only one who ever asked what I wanted to be when I grew up. The only one who listened without flinching when I said aerospace engineer. The only one who never changed the subject to Connor's football stats. I thought about her a lot that night. She had died 2 months earlier, in March, just after my 19th birthday. Heart attack, sudden and without warning. Grandpa Walter found her in the garden, kneeling next to the tomato plants she had been teaching me to grow since I was 7 years old. At the funeral, he had pulled me aside and pressed something into my hand. An envelope, sealed, my name written on it in Grandma's precise, careful handwriting. Your grandma wanted you to have this, he said, but not yet. She told me you would know when the time was right. I tried to ask what was inside, but he just shook his head and walked away, tucking the envelope back into the inside pocket of his jacket. I did not know then that envelope would change everything. But that is the thing about truth. It does not need you to know it is coming. It just waits, patient and certain, until the moment arrives. The next night, Mom came into my room while I was reading. She did not knock. She just walked in and saw the stack of envelopes on my desk, 8 of them, pre-addressed to 8 different admissions offices. I had printed them out weeks ago, before I knew I would be submitting everything online. They were backups, just in case, relics from a version of this story where I still believed my parents might change their minds. She picked one up, turned it over, looked at the return address. What is this? College applications, I said. I thought we told you no. I worked hard on them. I just wanted to... She did not let me finish. She called Dad, loud enough that I heard Connor's footsteps stop in the hallway outside my room. He was listening. I knew it from the sound of the floorboards. Dad came upstairs, took one look at the envelopes, and said, "Bring them downstairs." "Why?" I asked. "Now, Serena." I followed them down to the kitchen. My stomach was in knots. I knew what was coming. I could feel it in my chest before it happened. Trevor was at the table eating leftover pizza. He looked up when we walked in. Our eyes met for 1 second. He knew too. Mom spread the 8 envelopes out on the counter like evidence of a crime. MIT, Caltech, Stanford, Princeton, Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Tech, University of Michigan. "You have been wasting time on this," she said. The fluorescent kitchen light was too bright. It made everything look stark, clinical, exposed. I could see every line on her face, every bit of disappointment she had never quite managed to hide. "It is not wasting," I said. "We told you Connor needs this money. You are smart enough to get by without college. You do not need some expensive degree to figure out life." Dad picked up the Caltech envelope and read the address. His face hardened. These places cost $70,000 a year. You think we are made of money? Financial aid exists for exactly this situation, I said. We are not doing it. He dropped the envelope back onto the counter. This is final, Serena. You are going to have to accept that not everyone gets to go to college. Some people are built for it, some people are not. You are practical. That is a good thing. Practical girls stay close to home, get jobs, help their families. There is no shame in that. Mom gathered the envelopes into a pile. Her hands were steady and certain. She walked to the sink, turned on the faucet slightly, just enough to dampen the bottom of the steel basin. Then she dropped in and pulled out a lighter. Mom, I said. She lit the corner of the MIT envelope. It caught fast. The orange flame spread to the others. I watched the paper curl and blacken. The addresses melted away. The ink ran like tears down the white paper before it all turned to ash. The smell hit me, that acrid chemical smell of burning paper. It got into my hair, into my clothes. I can still smell it sometimes, even now, months later, when I am sitting in my dorm room in California and the window is open and something in the air reminds me. This is for your own good, Mom said, watching the flames. You will thank us later. Dad stood next to her, arms crossed. Connor's recruiting video cost us $6,800. We are investing in winners, not in fantasies. I looked at Connor. He was staring at his plate, jaw clenched, and he would not meet my eyes. I wanted him to say something, anything, even just my name. But he did not. The envelopes burned down to ash, gray and black and curled at the edges. The smoke detector did not go off. The ventilation fan above the stove pulled most of it out. Mom ran water over the ashes until they dissolved into gray sludge and washed down the drain. The sink made a hollow gurgling sound, like something important disappearing. We are not being cruel, Mom said, drying her hands on a dish towel. We are being realistic.
Girls like you, smart, practical. You do not need a fancy degree. You can work, save money, help the family. That is valuable too. Girls like you. Not girls like someone else. Girls like me. Girls who do not get to dream. Dad called after Connor. Come on, champ. Let's watch your highlight reel again. Connor stood up, looked at me for just a second, opened his mouth like he was going to say something important, then he followed Dad into the living room. I stayed in the kitchen alone. The sink still smelled like burned paper. My hands smelled like it too. I turned on the faucet and washed them 3 times. The smell would not leave. I went back upstairs, opened my laptop, and checked my email one more time. Your application to Caltech has been received. Application ID 2025EA17839. Submitted May 13th, 2025, 9:47 p.m. The timestamp stared back at me like a quiet, permanent victory. 2 days before they burned the backup copies. 2 days before they thought they had stopped me. They could burn paper. They could not burn what I had already built. That night, lying in bed, staring at the Andromeda poster, I got another email. My phone buzzed on my nightstand. I almost did not check it. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, hollowed out. But something made me reach for it anyway. Subject line: NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. Internship decision. My heart stopped. I had applied on a whim back in March, the same week Grandma Margaret died. I was sitting in the funeral home during calling hours, watching relatives I barely knew tell stories about her life, and I had pulled out my phone and filled out the NASA application right there, quietly in the corner of that room, while someone else was giving a toast. I had not told anyone. The application asked for a transcript, an essay about my interest in aerospace, and 2 teacher recommendations. I had submitted it at midnight and figured I would never hear back, because things like that did not happen to people like me, not according to my family anyway. I clicked the email open and read it once, then again, then a 3rd time to make sure it was real. Congratulations, you have been selected for our summer internship program at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, Propulsion Systems Testing Lab. Paid position, $18 per hour, 40 hours per week. Program dates, June 2nd through August 15th. Please confirm your acceptance by May 22nd. I sat up in bed. Read it again. NASA Marshall was in Huntsville. I lived in Huntsville. The facility was 22 minutes from my house. I could do this without anyone knowing. I hit reply and typed 2 words. I accept. Sent it at 11:43 p.m. Then I closed my laptop and went to bed. But I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling at the Andromeda poster, and I thought, this is it. This is how I build something they cannot burn. June 2nd, 6:30 in the morning. The sky was that pale pre-sunrise gray, quiet and cool and full of something that felt like permission. I had borrowed Mrs. Calloway's car, my 79-year-old neighbor who had not driven in 2 years. I had been mowing her lawn since I was 14. When I asked if I could use her old Honda Civic for the summer, she handed me the keys without hesitation and said, "Do not crash it, honey, and eat something before you go. You look too thin." I drove to NASA Marshall with a granola bar in one hand and my phone in the other, GPS guiding me through streets I had never taken before. When I pulled up to the security gate, my hands were shaking badly enough that I had to grip the steering wheel with both hands just to look steady. I showed my ID. The guard checked a list, nodded, and waved me through. I parked in visitor parking, walked to building 4550, got my badge at the front desk, MS2025-INT-138. They took my photo. I looked terrified in it. I did not care. They gave me a lab coat, a hard hat, a folder with orientation materials, and told me to report to Dr. James Whitfield. He was waiting in his office. 53 years old, 26 years at NASA, graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses, a coffee mug on his desk that said, "Failure is not an option, but it is data." He had a reputation for being brilliant and for not suffering fools. He looked at my badge and then looked at me. "You are the youngest intern we have had in 6 years," he said. "Do not waste it." That first day, he took me on a tour of the propulsion test stands, massive concrete structures where they fired rocket engines and measured thrust, temperature, fuel, efficiency. The test stands were enormous, stories tall, covered in sensors and blast shields and scorch marks from previous tests. When they fired an engine during a test run that afternoon, the ground shook beneath my feet. The sound was like thunder compressed into a single roar that I could feel in my chest, in my bones, in the back of my teeth. I stood there, hard hat on, safety goggles fogging up slightly, and I thought, this is where I belong. Dr. Whitfield had to shout over the noise. Most people talk about going to space. We build the things that get them there. I worked 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Test data analysis, computational modeling, sitting in on design reviews where engineers twice my age argued about nozzle angles and combustion chamber pressure like it was personal. I learned CAD software. I helped run simulations on propulsion efficiency. Every evening, I drove home around 6, parked Mrs. Calloway's car back in her driveway, walked into my house smelling faintly of machine oil and lab chemicals. No one ever asked where I had been. The first week, Dad said, "Where were you all day?" I said, "Library." He said, "Good, stay out of trouble." That was it. He went back to watching television. Connor had left for his quarterback camp in Florida the day after school ended. 2 weeks, $4,200. Elite QB Academy, they called it. When he came back in late June, the family threw him a welcome home dinner. Mom made his favorite: lasagna, garlic bread, Caesar salad. Dad asked him 100 questions about drills and footwork and what the coaches had said about his potential. I sat at the table and ate quietly and listened to Connor describe the camp. The way he talked, you would think Alabama and Clemson were already calling. But I could see it in his eyes, the way they did not quite meet Dad's when he answered. The way his voice got a little higher when he said, the coaches were really impressed. He was exaggerating, maybe lying outright. And nobody at that table was asking the right questions. Nobody asked about my summer. Not once. By week 4 at NASA, Dr. Whitfield gave me my own project, Microthruster Efficiency Improvement. He handed me a folder of research papers, some of them decades old, some published just last year, and said, "See what you can do with this." I spent 3 weeks running simulations, tweaking variables, testing configurations. I ran 47 different simulations. adjusting nozzle angle by 0.3 degrees each time, testing fuel mixture ratios, modifying thrust vector control algorithms. By week 8, I had results. A 12% efficiency improvement over the current standard design. It was not revolutionary. It was not going to change space travel overnight, but it was real. It was rigorous. It was mine. Dr. Whitfield looked at my findings and nodded slowly. This is good work, Serena. This is publishable work. Most graduate students do not produce results like this. I did not tell him I was 19. Did not tell him my parents had burned my college applications. Did not tell him anything except what the data said. And then came the twist I had not expected. In mid-August, just before the internship ended, Dr. Whitfield submitted my microthruster analysis to the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets, a peer-reviewed aerospace publication. He listed me as the primary author. I was 19 years old. He did not tell me right away. He told me on my last day. Before you go, he said, I want you to know that I submitted your thruster work for publication 3 weeks ago. It has already been accepted pending minor revision. My mouth went dry. Published? With your name as first author? Yes. He handed me a printout of the acceptance letter. Congratulations, Dr. Whitfield said. You are about to become a published researcher before you have set foot in a college classroom. That paper would go live online in November, before Thanksgiving, before any of them knew I existed in the world the way I actually did. On August 10th, I checked my Caltech application portal during my lunch break.
Sitting in the NASA cafeteria eating a sandwich I had packed that morning, the notification came through. Your application is under final review. Early decision results will be available December 15th. I screenshotted it, saved it in a hidden folder on my phone labeled Recipes, so no one would stumble across it accidentally. August 15th was my last day at NASA. Dr. Whitfield called me into his office before I left. We have something called the Pathways program, he said, for students we want to keep. Long-term internships during the school year, potential pathway to full-time positions after graduation. Are you interested? Yes, I said immediately. I will put your name in, he said. You should hear back by November. He shook my hand and told me I had done exceptional work, told me not to let anyone convince me I was not capable of anything I set my mind to. I wanted to tell him that someone already had tried, that they had burned my future in a kitchen sink and laughed about it. But I just thanked him and walked out into the August heat, feeling like a completely different person than the girl who had walked in on June 2nd. That night at dinner, Dad said, Trevor starts varsity next week. Big year ahead. This could be the year scouts really start paying attention. Mom turned to me and said, Serena, you should get a job. Something to help with bills. Retail maybe, or waitressing. I looked at her and set down my fork. I have been working, I said. She did not ask what I meant. She did not ask for details, did not ask if I was okay or what I had been doing all summer. She just nodded and went back to talking about Connor's practice schedule. I checked my bank account that night. $7,200. 40 hours a week for 10 weeks at $18 an hour, minus taxes. I had earned more this summer than they had spent on Connor's camp. Nobody in my family knew, and somehow that made it even better. September came. School started, senior year for me, even though I was technically already done with the applications. Connor made varsity, not as the starter. Brady Wilson was the senior quarterback, and he was actually good, the kind of good that gets you looks from mid-tier D2 programs. But Connor was on the roster. Backup, technically third string. Dad did not mention that part when he told people. Friday night, September 5th, first game of the season. The whole family went. Huntsville High versus Garver. The stadium was packed. Small-town Alabama football, where Friday nights are religion and the bleachers are packed 2 hours before kickoff. We sat halfway up. Mom brought a blanket even though it was still 80 degrees. Dad wore his Huntsville hoodie and a baseball cap. Connor stood on the sideline in his jersey, number 14. The game was a blowout. Huntsville led 35-7 by the fourth quarter. Brady Wilson had thrown 4 touchdowns. He was very good. The kind of good that made Connor's D1 potential look like something someone had dreamed up and never examined too closely. The coach pulled Brady with 6 minutes left and put Connor in. Garbage time. The game was already decided. Connor ran 2 handoffs, both times just putting the ball in the running back's hands. Then he threw 1 incomplete pass. Underthrew it by 5 yards. The receiver had to stop and come back, and it still hit the ground. Clock ran out. Game over. In the parking lot afterward,
Dad was on the phone with someone. Yeah, Connor had some great plays tonight. Really showed what he can do. I think there were some scouts in the stands. Hard to tell, but you could feel the energy. None of that was true. Mom was telling Mrs. Henderson, "Did you see how he carried himself out there? That is a D1 athlete. You can just tell." Connor was quiet in the car, stared out the window, jaw tight. He knew. I could see it in the set of his shoulders.
He knew he had only played because the game was already over, because it did not matter anymore, but he did not correct them. At home, Dad got on the phone with Grandpa Walter. I was in the kitchen getting water when I heard it through the doorway. "Yeah, Dad, Connor had a great game tonight. Brady got a little banged up, so Connor stepped in and really took command. Coaches are talking about giving him more playing time, maybe even starting him next week." Not one word of that was true. I stood there with my glass of water, listening to my father build a house out of sentences that had no foundation. Then his other phone rang. He answered it. "Hello? Yes, this is Mr. Mitchell. About Connor?" He paused. "Uh-huh. Film? How much?" His face changed, excited. "That seems expensive, but yeah, I see. Every kid needs one these days. Okay, send me the information." He hung up. Mom came into the kitchen. "Who was that?" Dad said, "Recruiting service. They make highlight films. Send them to colleges." $3,200. It was not a scout. It was not a college coach. It was a sales call from a company that bought lists of high school athletes and cold called their parents selling overpriced recruiting packages that no college coach would ever look at. Mom said we should do it. Dad said fine. I turned and went upstairs. In my room, I opened my laptop and looked at my Caltech confirmation one more time. Then I opened my email and found something that made me sit very still. It was from Dr. Whitfield. "Just forwarding this along," he wrote. "Thought you should see it." The link was to the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets pre-publication page. My name was at the top of the abstract. Serena Mitchell, NASA Marshall Space Flight Center intern. Title: Microthruster Nozzle Geometry Optimization, a computational approach to efficiency improvement. It was online, public, my name, my work, already in the world, and nobody in my house knew it existed. I saved the link in my recipes folder, lay back on my bed, and stared at the Andromeda poster. Then I thought about Connor. He was in the living room, and knew without looking. I walked downstairs and through the door and sat on the arm of the couch while Dad was on the phone in the other room. Connor looked up. I looked back for a second and said nothing. He finally put down his phone. Something was in his face. I asked, "Are you okay?" He shrugged. He looked thin, dark circles under his eyes. "You do not have to keep doing this," I said quietly. He looked at me. "I do not know how to stop it," he said. "I know," I said. And then I went back upstairs. But here is what I did not find out until later, what Connor told me months afterward over coffee, when we finally talked honestly about all of it. He had seen my NASA badge. In early July, he had been looking for his phone charger in the kitchen and found my backpack on a chair with the zipper open. My badge was sitting right on top.
MS 2025 NT 138, with my photo and NASA Marshall Space Flight Center printed across the top. He had picked it up, looked at it, understood what it meant, and put it back. Zipped up my bag, never said a word. He had kept my secret. The only person in that house who knew the truth, and he had protected me. I did not know that then, but it matters to the story, because Connor was never the villain. He was just a kid drowning in expectations he had never asked for and did not know how to escape. October came. Mid-month, Sunday dinner, Aunt Rachel and Uncle Frank came over with their kids, my cousins, Sophie, 16, and the twins, Jake and Mason, 13, and little Gracie, 10. The table was set for 10. Connor sat at the head next to Dad. I helped Mom carry food from the kitchen: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls that she had made from scratch, even though her hands hurt in the cold. Dad said grace. Then the conversation turned, as it always did, to Connor.
Aunt Rachel said, "Connor, how is football going?" "Good," Connor said. "We are 5-2. Uncle Frank said, "You starting yet?" Connor hesitated. "Not yet, But Coach says, Dad interrupted. Connor is being humble. Scouts are circling. We have had calls. None of that was true. Uncle Frank raised his glass. Best of luck, kid. Then Aunt Rachel turned to me. What about you, Serena? What are your plans for next year? Mom answered before I could speak. Her voice was light, pleasant, like we were discussing the weather. Serena is taking a gap year. Not everyone rushes into college. She is going to figure out what she wants to do. Maybe get a job, save for money. Not everyone rushes into college. That was the updated language. Softer than not everyone is cut out for college. Same meaning. Cousin Sophie leaned over and whispered, But you are smart, right? I heard you got like a 1480 on the SAT. That is really good. I nodded. Why are you not applying? She whispered back.
Before I could answer, Dad's voice cut across the table. Tests do not mean much anymore, Sophie. Real world is about grit, about being able to perform under pressure. Some people are book smart, some people are life smart. The implication was clear. I was book smart, Connor was life smart, and life smart was better. Dad raised his glass. To Connor, built for greatness. Everyone drank. I did not. I just sat there thinking about the Caltech portal I had checked that morning, about my name on that published paper in the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets, about the $7,200 in my bank account that no one knew existed. After dinner, I helped clear plates. Connor was alone in the kitchen when I came in. I am sorry, he said quietly. I set the dishes on the counter. For what? He glanced toward the dining room. You know. I looked at him, really looked at him. He looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes. You okay? I asked. He said he was fine. He was not, but I did not push it. He picked up a dish towel and started drying plates. You are going to do something amazing, he said. I do not know what, but you are. Then he walked away, and I stood there alone in the kitchen with the sound of water running in the sink, thinking, he knows. He does not know the details, but he knows this is all wrong. And neither of us knew yet how completely and publicly and permanently that wrongness was about to be exposed. If you are still watching, if you have ever had to build your future quietly while the people who are supposed to believe in you looked the other way, drop a comment right now. Write, I am building too. And make sure you are subscribed to Story Sentence so you don't miss what happens next. November 10th. I was sitting in AP Calculus when the email came through. My phone buzzed in my backpack. Mrs. Chen had a strict no phones rule, but I felt the vibration and something in me said, check it. I waited until the bell rang, walked to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, opened the email with shaking hands. NASA Marshall Space Flight Center Pathways Program. I read it standing there, backpack at my feet, fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Congratulations. You have been selected for continuation in our Pathways Student Internship Program. Spring semester schedule available. $20 per hour. Please confirm availability. I replied immediately, right there in the school bathroom. Available. Thank you. I accept. Sent. Then I sat there for 5 full minutes just breathing. $20 an hour. Spring semester. NASA wanted me back. November 15th. Another email from Caltech. Decision available December 15th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I marked it in my calendar with 3 separate reminders. November 19th. 1 week before Thanksgiving, I was sitting in Grandpa Walter's kitchen drinking tea with him when he said, I called your Dr. Whitfield last week. I nearly spilled my tea. Grandpa, he looked completely unashamed. I needed to know what you had been doing all summer. I was worried about you. What did he say? He set down his mug. He said you are one of the most talented young people he has ever worked with in 26 years at NASA. Said your research is already published. Said you are the real thing, Serena. My throat tightened. I did not say anything. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. Same one I had seen him tuck away at the funeral. Old, slightly yellowed. My name on it in Grandma Margaret's handwriting. I think it is time, he said. I nodded. He set it on the table between us. I picked it up and held it, but did not open it yet. I put it in my bag and said, I will read it when the moment is right. He nodded like he understood exactly what I meant. 3 days later, November 22nd, Mom started planning Thanksgiving in earnest. 22 confirmed guests. She made lists on yellow legal pads.
Turkey, 24 pounds. Extra chairs, folding tables, pies, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce. She was stressed in the way she always got before large gatherings, snapping at Dad when he suggested ordering something pre-made. "Absolutely not," she said. "This family makes Thanksgiving from scratch." This family, as if we all wanted the same things. Grandpa Walter called to confirm he was coming. I answered the phone. "Hey, kiddo, how are you?" "Good, Grandpa." "Really?" Grandpa had a way of asking questions that made you tell the truth, even when you were not planning to. "Yeah, really. Your grandma would have been proud of you, you know." "For what?" "For being you. For not letting them make you smaller." I did not know what to say to that. He cleared his throat. "I will see you Thursday. Got something for you. Something your grandma left." "I know," I said. He paused. "Time is right, I think." We hung up. November 23rd, a package arrived.
Return address: California Institute of Technology, Office of Admissions, 1200 East California Boulevard, Pasadena, California 91125. I grabbed it before anyone else could see it, took it straight to my room, opened it with shaking hands. Welcome packet. Thick, glossy. Course catalog, campus map, housing information, a letter from the dean welcoming me to the class of 2030, a Caltech pennant, a sticker. I spread it all out on my bed and catched each piece like it might disappear. I hid it all in the back of my closet, behind boxes of old clothes. November 24th. Financial aid emailed. We have attempted to reach you by phone regarding your financial aid package. Please verify your enrollment plans and confirm your understanding of the aid offer. We need to hear from you by December 1st to hold your place. I did not respond yet. 3 more days until Thanksgiving, and I could not sleep.
I lay in bed staring at the Andromeda poster, thinking about what would happen if I just walked downstairs and said it out loud. I got into Caltech, full ride, $272,000. I am leaving in the fall. But I did not, because part of me, a part I am not entirely proud of, wanted to see how far they would go, how long they would keep pretending Connor was the golden child, how long they would keep pretending I did not exist. I wanted them to say it, in front of Grandpa Walter, in front of Aunt Rachel, in front of Mrs. Henderson, who had been a guidance counselor for 30 years and knew exactly what a 1480 SAT score meant. I wanted them to say I was not college material in front of 22 witnesses, so I could prove them wrong in front of 22 witnesses. I am not proud of that, but it is true. So I waited. November 27th, Thanksgiving, 7 a.m., I woke up to the sound of Mom already moving around downstairs, pots and pans, oven door opening and closing. I came down in my pajamas and started helping. Peeled potatoes, chopped celery, diced onions for the stuffing. Made the stuffing from scratch the way Grandma Margaret had taught me. Bread cubes, broth, sage, thyme. My eyes watered from the onions, or maybe from something else. I am still not sure. Dad set up the tables. 1 long table extended with 3 leaves, 2 folding tables pushed against it, 22 seats total. Matching tablecloths, coordinating napkins, actual china. Grandma Margaret's chair was left empty at one end. Dad set her framed photo on the table next to the empty seat. 8 by 10. Her in the garden, smiling, holding a tomato. Mom put white roses around the frame. She teared up looking at it. She would have loved this, Mom said. I looked at the photo, at Grandma's smile, and I thought, she loved the people. She loved me. She loved truth, and she knew none of you were telling it. 10 in the morning, Connor came downstairs wearing his Huntsville High football jersey, number 14. Dad grinned when he saw it. Perfect. Show them who you are, son. Connor nodded, but did not say anything. He looked pale and tired. Are you okay? I asked him. He glanced at me. Yeah, just nervous, you know. Family. I did know. Noon. Guests started arriving. Grandparents on Mom's side first, then Aunt Rachel and Uncle Frank and the kids. Emma hugged me. Sophie whispered, I am rooting for you. I did not know what she meant by that. It felt good anyway. Grandpa Walter was last through the door. 79 years old, still strong, still sharp. He hugged Connor and whispered something I could not hear.
Then he came to me and held me longer than usual. "You okay?" he said quietly. "Always, Grandpa." He looked at me like he did not quite believe me. Then he patted my shoulder. "I have got something for you," he said. "After dinner. Time is right." My heart jumped. The letter. He nodded once.
1 o'clock. Everyone gathered in the living room. Dad held court from his recliner, telling Uncle Frank about Connor's season. "Incredible year," Dad said. "Scouts are circling. We have had calls from 3 programs." "Which schools?" Uncle Frank leaned forward. Dad smiled. "Cannot say yet, do not want to jinx anything, but we are fielding some very interesting calls." It was all invented, but nobody at that gathering knew that. Then Aunt Rachel turned to me. "What about you, Serena? What are you thinking for next year?" Mom answered. "Serena is figuring things out, taking time. Not everyone rushes into college. She is practical. She will stay local, maybe get a job." Mrs. Henderson, bless her, said, "Serena, with your SAT score, you have real options. Have you thought about engineering programs?" Dad waved a hand. "She's thinking local, staying close to home. That is smart." Connor was sitting on the couch, quiet and uncomfortable, glancing at me and then away. Cousin Sophie leaned over.
"You are always the smart one," she whispered. "Connor is smart too," I said. "Not like you," she said back. 2:30. Mom called everyone to the table. Seating arrangement said everything. Dad at the head, Mom at the foot. Connor next to Dad in the seat of honor. Grandpa Walter next to Mom. Me 3 seats down, wedged between Sophie and Uncle Frank. I helped carry food, set out dishes, poured water and iced tea, refilled bread baskets. 3:15. Everyone seated, plates full, turkey carved. The table looked beautiful. All that china and the candles, and Grandma Margaret's photo watching over everything. Dad stood to say grace. "Lord, we thank you for this food, for this family, for the blessings of another year. We are especially grateful for Connor's success this season and for the opportunities ahead of him. We ask that you guide him toward the right path. Amen." Not one word about me. Not even a general thanks for all our children. Just Connor, just his success, just his future.
I kept my head bowed, did not look up, did not want anyone to see my face. Then the phone rang. Loud, shrill, the old landline Dad refused to get rid of. Mom looked at the caller ID. Unknown number. Area code 626, California. "Should I get it?" she said. Dad said, "It is Thanksgiving. Let it go to voicemail." It rang again. Same number. Grandpa Walter said, "Might be important." Mom picked up. "Hello?" Pause. "Yes, this is Mrs. Mitchell." Another pause. Her face changed. Confusion first, then something I had never seen on her before. Shock. "I am sorry. Who is this?" Longer pause. The table had gone completely silent. Forks frozen. "Caltech?" 22 people listening. Mom pressed the phone to her chest. Her face was pale. "Rosella," she said, using my grandmother's name without realizing it. She corrected herself. "Serena, did you apply to Caltech?" I stood up, walked over, extended my hand. "I will take it." She handed me the phone. Her hand was shaking. I put it to my ear. "This is Serena Mitchell."
The voice on the other end was clear and calm and professional. "Hello, Serena. This is Dr. Sarah Park from the California Institute of Technology, Office of Financial Aid. I apologize for calling on a holiday, but we have been trying to reach you for several days. Did you receive our aid package notification?" "Yes, ma'am, I did." "Wonderful. I wanted to personally confirm the need-based grant of $68,000 per year. Is that amount acceptable to you?" "Yes." "Excellent. We would also love to invite you and your family to campus on December 8th for our admitted students reception, an opportunity to meet faculty, tour the labs, and connect with your future classmates. Will you be able to attend?" "I will be there." "Perfect. I will send details via email this evening." "And Serena?" "Yes?" "Congratulations. We are absolutely delighted to have you as part of Caltech's class of 2030. Your application was exceptional. And I want you to know, your published research in the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets was a significant factor in our decision." The room went completely still. "Thank you," I said. I hung up, set the phone down on the table. The silence was so complete I could hear the candles flickering. Dad stood up slowly.
His face was red. What the hell just happened? I looked at him, looked at Mom, looked at Connor, then looked at Grandpa Walter. He was smiling, actually smiling. I got into Caltech, I said. You applied, Dad's voice was tight, without telling us. I told you I wanted to apply. You burned my envelopes. Kitchen sink, May 16th. Mom's voice was shaking. We said no. We said save the money for Connor. I did not need your money, I said calmly. I got a full ride, $68,000 per year in need-based aid. That is $272,000 over 4 years. Uncle Frank did the math immediately, out loud. $272,000. Gasps around the table. Aunt Rachel's hand went to her mouth. Mrs. Henderson was already crying.
I knew it. I knew you could do it. Dad's face was getting redder. You went behind our backs after we explicitly told you no. I submitted online, I said, September 15th, 2 days before you burned the backup copies I had printed. Connor's head snapped up. Before? I nodded. 2 days before. Sophie whispered, "Oh my God." The table was completely silent. Dad was stuttering. When did you find out? November 20th, a week ago. And you did not tell us? I looked at him, really looked at him. Would you have listened? Nobody answered. Grandpa Walter said, "There is more, is there not?" I looked at him and nodded. "Tell them," he said. I took a breath. "I have been working at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center since June." Mom's voice cracked. "What?" "Summer internship, propulsion systems testing lab, $18 per hour, 40 hours a week, 10 weeks. I earned $7,200. The table erupted. "NASA? You worked at NASA? That is where you were all summer?" Dad's voice cut through. "You told me you were at the library."
You did not ask, I said. You never asked. I told you I was working. You assumed it was nothing. You did not care enough to ask where. Aunt Rachel's voice was soft, almost unsteady. "Serena? NASA? Here in Huntsville. 22 minutes from this house," I said. "Building 4550, Propulsion Systems Testing Lab. Dr. James Whitfield was my supervisor. I drove there every morning, came home every evening. Parked in Mrs. Calloway's driveway so you would not see the car. No one asked where I had been." Mrs. Henderson put both hands over her mouth. "Serena, NASA internships are extraordinarily competitive. Hundreds of applicants for every spot." "I know. And you earned one at 19. "Yes, ma'am." Uncle Frank said, "The Pathways program, that is the pipeline to full-time positions after graduation." I nodded. "They invited me back. Spring semester, $20 an hour." Grandpa Walter was still standing next to me. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Tell them about your paper." I looked at him. "How did you know about that?" He smiled. "I called Dr. Whitfield last week. He told me everything, including that your research is already published." My throat tightened. "The Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets," I said. "My micro-thruster efficiency analysis. I ran 47 simulations, improved efficiency by 12%. Dr. Park from Caltech just told you on the phone. It was a factor in my admission." Dad's voice was hollow now. "You worked at NASA. You got into Caltech. You published research. You did all of this without us." "I did it despite you," I said quietly. Mom was crying now, full tears running down her face. Then Connor stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. Everyone looked at him. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was shaking. Dad said, "Sit down, Connor. This is not about you." "Yes, it is." Connor's voice got louder, stronger than I had ever heard it. "It is about all of us. It is about what we did to her." Dad stood up. "Connor, do not." "You spent $10,000 on me," Connor said, cutting him off. "Camps, recruiting videos, film services, training sessions, new cleats, that QB academy, all of it." The table froze. Connor's voice cracked. "I am backup quarterback. I have played 12 snaps all season. 12. All in garbage time. All in games that were already decided. No scouts, no offers, not even community college interest because I am not D1.
I am not even D2. I am barely varsity. Dad's face went white. Connor kept going. She did this on her own. While you paid for my fake future, she got into Caltech. She worked at NASA. She published research. She earned money. She did everything right. His voice broke. And you told her she was not college material. You told her to stay home. You burned her applications in the kitchen in front of me and made me watch it. He was crying now, actually crying. You wanted me to be something I was not so badly that you could not see she was already flying. He turned and walked out of the room. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then the landline rang again. This time it was Grandpa Walter's cell phone. He pulled it out of his pocket and looked at the screen. "It is Martin Crawford," he said. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "Who?" "Your mother's estate attorney." Dad sank back into his chair. Grandpa Walter answered. "Martin?" "Yes, right now. All of them are here." "Yes, Richard too." He hung up, dialed back, and put the call on speaker. Set the phone on the table next to Grandma Margaret's photo. Martin Crawford's voice filled the room. Deep, measured, professional. "Good afternoon, everyone. Martin Crawford, attorney for the estate of Margaret Ann Mitchell. I apologize for interrupting your holiday, but Walter asked me to call at this specific time. This concerns the trust Mrs. Mitchell established before her death." Dad's voice was hoarse. "What trust?" "Your mother set aside $150,000 in a trust to be split equally between her two grandchildren, Connor and Serena, $75,000 each." The room went completely still. Even baby Gracie was quiet. However, there were conditions. Each grandchild receives their share upon acceptance to an accredited 4-year university, not community college, a 4-year institution. Uncle Frank's voice was barely audible. $150,000. Yes, Mrs. Mitchell was very clear about her intentions. The money is to support higher education and only higher education. As executor of the estate, I have been monitoring both grandchild's educational progress. As of November 20th, 2025, Serena Mitchell was accepted to the California Institute of Technology. Is this correct, Serena? Yes, sir, I said. Then Serena qualifies for immediate distribution of her $75,000. Funds will be transferred to her designated account within 5 business days. Dad found his voice. What about Connor? Has Connor received a formal acceptance letter from an accredited 4-year university? Silence. Longer silence. Then Dad said, "Not yet." Then his share remains in trust until he qualifies. Mom's voice broke completely. "Mother never told us about this." "She specifically asked me not to," Martin said. His voice was gentle but firm. "She said, and I am quoting directly from our conversation, they will try to interfere. They will try to redirect the money to where they think it should go. Do not let them." The words hit like something dropped from a great height. Grandpa Walter reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. Old, slightly yellowed. My name on it in Grandma Margaret's handwriting. "There is one more thing," Martin's voice said through the speaker. "Mrs. Mitchell left a sealed letter to be read when the first grandchild qualified for distribution. Walter, are you ready?" "Yes," Grandpa said. His voice was thick. He unfolded the letter, a single sheet of paper, handwritten, her neat, precise script visible across the table. "Do you want me to read it?" Grandpa asked, looking at me. I nodded. He cleared his throat and began. "Walter, if you are reading this, it means the children are grown and the moment has come. I only have one thing to say. Serena is the one." My breath caught. Grandpa's voice shook as he continued. "She has got Margaret in her. Quiet, brilliant, built to last. I watched her for 19 years, and I saw what all of you missed. She does not need to be loud to be extraordinary. She does not need permission to be brilliant. I watched her build a telescope with babysitting money and stay up until midnight reading about propulsion systems. I watched her look up at the sky with the same hunger I felt at her age. The money is hers when she earns it. And she will. She already has. Do not let them waste her. Tell her I am proud. Tell her she is named after me for a reason. Tell her the stars were always meant for her. All my love, Margaret. Silence. 8 seconds of complete, absolute silence. Then Aunt Rachel started crying. Then Mrs. Henderson. Then Sophie. Then Uncle Frank's voice, cracking. Good Lord. Grandpa Walter was crying too. He folded the letter carefully and handed it to me. I took it with shaking hands. Read it again. My grandmother's handwriting, small and precise and absolutely certain. Serena is the one. I realized in that moment, fully realized for the first time, that I was named after her. Serena Margaret, she had called me from the beginning. She had seen something in me before I was old enough to see it in myself, and she had left me proof in an attorney's office in a sealed envelope that could not be burned. The tears came then. First time since May. First time since they burned my applications. But these tears were different. These were relief. Grandpa pulled me into a hug and held me tight. He knew, he whispered. She always knew. From the day you were born, she told me. That one is going to change the world, Walter. Do not you dare let them clip her wings. I buried my face in his shoulder and sobbed. Aunt Rachel stood up, walked over, hugged me.
Then Mrs. Henderson, then Sophie, then Uncle Frank, then Grandma Mitchell's sister, who had driven 2 hours to be there. One by one. My parents did not move. They sat at the table. Dad's face was white. Mom was crying, but she did not get up, did not come to me. Connor was still in the other room. Martin Crawford's voice came through the speaker one final time. Serena, I will email you the trust distribution paperwork tomorrow morning. You will need to designate an account for the transfer. Congratulations. Your grandmother would be very proud. The call ended. I stood in the middle of that room, surrounded by people who finally saw me. Not my parents, not the 2 people who should have been the first to celebrate. Grandpa said quietly, "You can stay with me. I have to spare room. It is yours as long as you need it." "I don't want to cause problems," I said. His voice was steady. "You are not the problem. You never were." Dad stood up. "We need to talk."
Grandpa's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Not tonight. Not in this house. That is my granddaughter who just found out her dead grandmother believed in her more than her living parents ever did. Who just found out she is receiving $75,000 to support the education you told her she was not capable of. Who just found out that everything you told her about herself was a lie. So no, Richard, not tonight. Tonight she is coming home with me." I looked at my parents. Mom was still crying. Dad was staring at the table. Neither of them said anything. I went upstairs, packed a bag, everything I needed. Laptop, clothes, toothbrush, the Caltech welcome packet from the back of my closet, my NASA badge from my desk drawer, Grandma Margaret's letter, folded carefully and placed in the front pocket of my bag where I could reach it easily. Came back downstairs. Connor was sitting on the bottom step, face red, eyes swollen. "I am sorry," he said again. I sat down next to him. "It is not your fault."
"I saw your NASA badge," he said quietly. "In July. I found it in your bag. I knew what you were doing. I should have defended you." "You kept my secret," I said. He looked at me. "I was protecting myself too," he said. "I did not want to be the one who was not special anymore." "You are special, Connor," I said. "Just not the way they wanted you to be. And that is okay. That is something you get to figure out on your own terms." He nodded slowly. "What you did," he said, "building all of that quietly, that is the bravest thing I have ever seen." I hugged him. He hugged back, hard, the way people do when they are saying something they cannot find words for. Then I walked to the door,
where Grandpa Walter was waiting. We drove to his house in silence. When we got there, he showed me to the spare room. Clean, quiet, pictures of Grandma Margaret everywhere, her smile watching over everything. "Get some rest," Grandpa said. I set my bag down and looked at the photos.
Grandma Margaret holding me when I was 3, both of us covered in flour from making cookies. Teaching me to plant tomatoes when I was 7, both of us kneeling in the dirt. Standing next to my telescope when I was 15, her arm around my shoulders, both of us looking up at the same sky. She had seen me when no one else did. Before I even knew what I was becoming, she had already seen it. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in 6 months, I felt like I could breathe. The next week was strange. My parents called 14 times in the first 3 days. I let every call go to voicemail. They left messages. "We need to talk. You are being dramatic. You cannot just leave." I deleted them all. December 1st, Martin Crawford emailed the trust distribution paperwork. I signed it electronically and designated my bank account within an hour. December 3rd, I was sitting in Grandpa's kitchen eating breakfast when I checked my balance. $82,200. My summer earnings, $7,200. Grandma's trust, $75,000. I texted Grandpa. He was in the next room. "It is real," I wrote. He texted back. "Margaret kept her promises. Always did." December 4th, Mom came to Grandpa's door alone. She looked terrible. Eyes red, hair pulled back, no makeup. "Can I talk to her?" she said. Grandpa looked at me from across the kitchen. I nodded. He let her in. We sat in the living room. "What you did was wrong," she said. I looked at her. "What did I do wrong?" "You went behind our backs. I built a future you told me I could not have." "We were trying to protect you," she said. "From what? Success?" She started crying. "From disappointment, from failure, from setting your expectations too high and getting crushed." "I did not fail," I said calmly. "I got into Caltech. I worked at NASA. I published research. I earned money. I did everything right. But you lied to us." "No," I said. "You did not ask. There is a difference. I told you I was working. You assumed it was nothing." "You did not care enough to find out." She broke down completely. "I thought I was doing what was best." "Best for who?" I said quietly. She did not answer. I let the silence sit for a long moment. Then I said, "When you are ready to see me, the real me, not the version you decided I should be, call me. Until then, I need space." She walked to the door, stopped. "I am sorry," she said. "I know," I said, "but sorry is not enough yet." She left. No resolution, no promise to change, just silence. But I felt lighter anyway, because I did not need her approval anymore. January came. Connor got accepted to Calhoun Community College. He texted me. "I got in somewhere. It is a start." I replied immediately. "That is great, Connor. Really proud of you." He wrote back, "I am sorry I let them make you invisible." I said, "You did not make me invisible. They did. You were caught in the middle, and you tried to protect me by keeping my secret. That matters more than you know." "Can I see you sometime?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Coffee." We met the next week at a Starbucks on University Drive. Sat outside even though it was cold. Talked for 2 hours. He apologized again. Told me he had known all along it was wrong. Told me he had not known how to stop it without everything collapsing. I told him it was not his job to fix them. He told me about community college, about maybe studying business, maybe finding what he actually wanted for himself instead of what Dad had needed him to be. I told him that was the smartest thing he had ever said. He said, "You are always smarter than all of us." I said, "You are going to be okay. You just need your own path, not Dad's path, yours." He nodded. We hugged before we left, the first real hug we had shared since we were children. February came faster than I expected. I was packing for Caltech. Clothes, books, my telescope, carefully wrapped in bubble wrap with fragile written across the box in 3 places. My parents sent tentative, apologetic texts. "We are proud of you. We miss you. Can we visit sometime?" I responded briefly, politely. "Thank you. Maybe in a few months." February 10th, Dad came to Grandpa's house. I answered the door. "I want to apologize,"
he said. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. We stood on the porch in the February cold. I was wrong, he said. About everything. About you. About Connor. About what success means. About what matters. I nodded. Yes, you were. Can you forgive me? I looked at him. Really looked at him. He looked older somehow, like something inside him had come apart and been put back together in a different configuration. Eventually, I said, but not today. What do you need from me? I need you to earn it the way I earned everything, I said. Prove you see me, not the version you wanted, the real version. The daughter who got into Caltech, who worked at NASA, who published research, who built a future you tried to burn. He flinched at that last part.
I did not mean for it to go that far, he said. I know, I said, but it did, and you have to own that before we can move forward. He did not say anything more. I went back inside and closed the door. Grandpa was standing in the hallway. He nodded once. She would be proud of that, he said, touching the framed photo of Grandma Margaret on the wall. I smiled. I know. February 15th, moving day. Grandpa and I loaded everything into his truck in the early morning cold. Before I went through security at the airport, he hugged me for a long time. You are going to do great things, kid. Thanks, Grandpa. And Serena? Yeah? Your grandma was right. You have got Margaret in you. Quiet, brilliant, built to last. You are going to do things she only ever dreamed about, but she will be watching. So will I. I hugged him harder. Then I walked through security. Did not look back. On the plane, I opened my laptop and read the Caltech acceptance letter one more time. Welcome to the class of 2030. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my dorm room at Caltech, room 237, looking out the window at the San Gabriel Mountains, the California sun making everything look golden and possible and real. I was thinking about Grandma Margaret, about the letter, about the garden and the telescope, and the way she used to say, "You are named after me, you know, so you have got to live up to it." My parents had sent a few more texts since I had left. Tentative, careful. We are proud of you. We are trying to understand. Can we call sometime? I responded briefly. Thank you. I will call when I am ready. I had not forgiven them yet. Maybe I would someday. Maybe I would not. That was up to them now, not me. They had spent 19 years investing in the wrong child, building up the wrong future, burning down the right one. And when the truth finally arrived, at a Thanksgiving table in front of 22 witnesses, over the phone from Caltech, and from beyond the grave through a sealed letter from a woman who had known all along, they had to sit there and watch everything they had built collapse. I did not need their approval. I did not need their money. I did not need them to see me, because I had already built something they could not touch, and Grandma Margaret had seen it all along. She had left me her name, her letter, her love, her money, and her certainty. She had left me proof that I was not invisible. I had never been invisible. They just were not looking, but I was done waiting for them to look. I was done being practical. I was done making myself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. I was Serena Mitchell, named after Margaret. Quiet, brilliant, built to last. And the stars were just getting started with me. If you have ever had to build your future in silence because your family could not see your worth, if you have ever been told you were just being practical while someone else got called the future, drop a comment right now. Tell me what you are building. Tell me what they could not burn. Because you are not invisible. You never were. They just weren't looking. And if this story moved you, please subscribe to Story Sentence and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Like this video so more people can find it. Because stories like this one matter, and so do you. Thank you for watching Story Sentence. I will see you in the next one.